In the mid-90s, major changes were happening in the world of gaming. Games were evolving drastically, going from simple sprites on a solid background to a full-fledged 3D immersive experience in the span of 10 years or so. While captivating, 3D technology was far more demanding than its two-dimensional counterpart. 3D models weren't made on any old personal computer like today. The only product that could handle such a thing were SGI workstations, a line of expensive supercomputers that could handle the creation and rendering of hundreds, if not a few thousand polygons on a 3D space. With all of this graphical power coming into the equation, consoles needed two things to handle 3D: to have enough power to display these models, and for there to be enough space to store them. What's interesting about the 5th generation of home consoles is that neither of the two frontrunners achieved both of these demands. Nintendo got the much needed power with its 64-bit processor and a powerful GPU created by SGI themselves, which was miles better than Sony's 32-bit CPU. But when it came to storage, Nintendo decided to continue with cartridges, while Sony used the much more advanced compact discs. Thus, despite being less powerful than its competitor, the PS1 absolutely crushed the N64 in terms of sales and accessibility. CDs were becoming so common that way more people could develop PS1 games as compared to N64 games. Along with this, CDs could hold so much data that developers could add fully animated cutscenes and just a lot more data in general. This isn't to say the N64 was a failure, not in the slightest. Some of the best games of all time were exclusive to the system, and it helped revolutionize gaming forever. But even then, Nintendo lost its #1 spot, and they had to do something about it. Determined to make their return to the throne of the gaming industry, Nintendo introduced the GameCube, released in late 2001 in Japan and North America, and in May 2002 for PAL regions. While the GameCube's specs weren't better than its competitors, they weren't terrible either, and were able to bring a very powerful and complete experience thanks to two main components: the Gecko, an IBM PowerPC 750 processor, most notably used in Apple's G3 line of PCs, and the Flipper, a powerful ATI GPU designed by former Silicon Graphics employees. Nintendo realized their fatal mistake with the N64 and tried to fix it with the GameCube and its new disc format, similar to a mini DVD. While it is better than cartridges, consumers complained about the format since they couldn't play normal DVDs on their GameCubes. Meanwhile, DVD playback was one of the main selling points of the PS2. But before we get to understand what happened with the GameCube, we first need to understand what happened in order for the GameCube to exist. Development for the system started in 1998 as Project Dolphin, after Nintendo secured a business partnership with Artex, formed by former SGI employees, that would create a powerful GPU for the console, what we now know as the ATI Flipper. This wasn't the only partnership that played a huge role in the system's creation. IBM's relationship with Nintendo helped bring the aforementioned Gecko to fruition, and Matsushita Electric, now known as Panasonic, developed a disk drive and a proprietary format. The console was first publicly mentioned by Nintendo in 1999, still going by the codename Dolphin, announcing it as the successor to the Nintendo 64 and mentioning the many partnerships that were making it all possible. Not long after this announcement, Artex was acquired by ATI, once a big name in the desktop GPU business, competing with the likes of Nvidia until AMD acquired the company in 2006. This was ATI's big debut into the console gaming world, and they sought to try their best by making the GameCube the king of the hill thanks to its 128-bit architecture. Yeah, a little side note, the GameCube and the GBA were the last consoles to brag about bits. Companies used some confusing marketing schemes for it to seem like it really is 128-bit or 256-bit, but deep down, it's all just a variation of 32 or 64-bit components. The console was formally announced as the Nintendo GameCube in August of the year 2000, and was released around a year later, with just 3 launch titles for its Japanese release. Those being Luigi's Mansion, a new twist into the Mario series and an opportunity for Green Mario to be in the spotlight for once, Wave Race Blue Storm, a successor to the beloved N64 title, and Super Monkey Ball, one of the first Sega games to be on a Nintendo system, not long after the Dreamcast was discontinued. Since the GameCube was only released a few months later in the rest of the world, we got some more launch titles than the Japanese, such as Crazy Taxi, a port of the best game ever, Rogue Squadron 2, one of the most beloved Star Wars games, THPS 3, a cornerstone of the early 2000s, and a lot of sports games. So I wanted to talk a bit more about the GameCube's library, so I made this little tier list with all of the games I played. It's a bit small, but I'm gonna give my opinions on each one of them. First up, we have the God tier with Crazy Taxi in the first place. I don't know why I put it there. Then we have the first Animal Crossing. It is a great title, very charming, very fun. Then we have 𝙩𝙤𝙙𝙖𝙮 the Giant, good game, watch my video on it. Then we have Pikmin that, much like 𝙩𝙩𝙙 and Animal Crossing, really cements that funny and warm and charming GameCube vibe. And yeah, it's really funny game, very good atmosphere. I kinda suck at it, but it's good. It's a good game. Then we have Mario Sunshine in a weird location with a funny talking companion. So yeah, good job. Then we have the Wind Waker. It is the prettiest Zelda game, in my opinion at least. And the GameCube would kinda suck if the Wind Waker wasn't on this system. But it is, and it's very good. Then we have Chibi Robo, once again, watch my video on it. Also good, also a good game. Then we have Super Monkey Ball, which is one of the first Sega games to be on a Nintendo system. And it sounds very stupid, but a game where you play as a monkey inside a ball collecting bananas is surprisingly amazing. It shouldn't have to be this good, but it is. Then we have F-Zero GX. Oh, I gotta do that one. Oh no! I have a love-hate relationship with this game, but deep down it is probably the best F-Zero game ever. Then we have Luigi's Mansion, which I've already talked about earlier. It's like the green Mario dude in a scary place. Good game, good idea, good execution. Then we have the top tier, and I put the Simpsons Hit and Run on the first place because we don't have a GTA on the GameCube. There is no GTA. So this is the next best thing, and it really is a good game. There are some Simpsons games that absolutely suck, but this one's great. This one is amazing. I like it. Then we have Mario Party 4. It runs well on Dolphin. Yeah, it's a solid title. Then we have the Zelda collector thingy. I think that's it. It's the one where you can play Ocarina of Time, and I put it there because it's a way to play Ocarina of Time on the GameCube, which is amazing. It's good that you can do that. Nintendo didn't really care about backwards compatibility back in these days, so this being a thing is kind of crazy. And then Sonic Gems Collection, and it's great because it has Sonic CD and Sonic R, and you know, those games are pretty forgotten, but they're good games. Then we have WarioWare Inc., which I think is a port of the GBA games. Either way, it's WarioWare. Very good title. Then we have Melee. I haven't played Melee that much, but yeah, it is fun. I prefer Brawl and the 3DS game, but Melee is good, okay? Melee is good. Then we have Double Dash. I wish I liked this game. I wish I liked Double Dash. But I'm very bad at the game, but I really like the tracks and the music. And the idea sounds good, but I suck at it and I don't really like it that much. Then we have Wario World, which is basically the same thing. It doesn't click for me. Every time I boot that game up, I play it for like 5 minutes and that's it. Then we have Kirby Air Ride, which once again, it's basically the same thing. I don't know why, but I don't like it. I can't play it well enough. And it kinda sucks that it is the only Kirby game on this system. Why? Could have been a great system for Kirby games because it's weird and has a weird color and a weird shape. It's like Kirby. Then we have Puyo Pop Fever, and I'm pretty sure I put it here just because it's a way to play Puyo Puyo. It's okay. My CRT is pretty big, but even then I can't really see what's going on. But yeah, it's Puyo Puyo, it works. And then on the here we have, yeah, I'm not gonna talk about it. So here is the GameCube controller. Pretty odd, but it doesn't mean it's bad. Far from it. It's probably the best controller Nintendo ever made. It's very comfortable, very ergonomic, very interesting. It's the first Nintendo controller to feature 2 analog sticks. We have the usual control stick, along with the C stick, which is an evolution of the C buttons on the N64. We have a D-pad, which sadly kinda sucks. It's a bit stiff. And the usual buttons, they look a bit weird here. If we look at the top of the controller, something's missing, I should say. What basically happened is that the Z button, previously featured on the back of the N64 controller, is now at the top. But honestly, it's not that big of a deal. The L and R buttons do a pretty great job at everything, really. It just looks kind of weird. It just looks kind of funky. But on the topic of weird controllers, we have the Wavebird. So the Wavebird was basically the first wireless game controller that was good, because before the Wavebird, all wireless controllers used infrared technology, which is like the TV remote. So you had to have it pointed at the TV at all times, and you couldn't be too far away from it. It sucked. It's not really a good technology to use on controllers. But the Wavebird uses radio frequency signals. And you might be wondering, what the hell is that, radio signals? That sounds super weird. Bluetooth is radio frequency signals. It's basically, it's the same thing. It works basically the same way. You'd put a little specific number on your Wavebird, and then you'd put the same number on the receiver, and you'd put the receiver on the GameCube, and it would work. Sadly, it didn't have rumble. I kind of understand why, because it's huge. Putting rumble motors in there would make it like as big as the GameCube itself, probably. On the topic of big and weird accessories for the GameCube, we have the Game Boy Player, which is a way to play Game Boy games on the big screen. It isn't the first time this has happened. Nintendo did the same thing twice with the Super Game Boy and the Super Game Boy 2 on the SNES, but they were only for Game Boy games. This one plays virtually everything. Game Boy games, Game Boy Color games, Game Boy Advance games, the weird Game Boy games where you have to like use motion controls. Yeah, you just move the GameCube around, it works. I'm pretty sure the only thing that it doesn't allow is Game Boy, the movies and the TV shows. I don't know who would be that desperate to pirate 144p versions of Pokemon, but yeah, okay, I kinda get it. But besides that, it's a great way to get into the Game Boy library. Next up on the little weird list of accessories I wrote down is the intact screen, which I'm pretty sure it's the screen, the little toilet seat. Yeah, that's basically it. It looks funny. Very interesting, very interesting. The next one isn't really an accessory, but it's more of a GameCube if it was good, and it is the Panasonic Q, which is the GameCube mixed with a DVD player. So basically the only bad thing with the GameCube, which is the fact that it wasn't up to date with the latest standards and it didn't allow DVD compatibility and whatever. Look, here it is, it's fixed, and it costs like, I don't know, $900 to get one nowadays, which is pretty sad. Next up we have the keyboard controller. Very funny looking, very wide, very interesting. This was used mainly for the online games, which was mostly Phantasy Star Online. Now that we're talking about it, we could talk about the online capability, which is basically Phantasy Star Online, and that's it. I think Kirby Air Ride and Mario Kart, they allowed like local LAN play. At least it existed. You had to get these like chunky and nowadays expensive adapters, but the community is making some new versions of that for much cheaper. So yeah, it's pretty good. But enough with the weird things, it's time to talk about the GameCube's legacy. It was the first Nintendo system to use optical media, which Nintendo continued to do until the Wii U. It introduced the iconic GameCube controller, which Nintendo also continued to make until the Wii U days with Smash 4 Wii U. It introduced a bunch of amazing franchises to the world, like Animal Crossing, Chibi Robo, Luigi's Mansion, and it refined some of Nintendo's best franchises. It brought us a great 3D Mario title. It basically reinvented the Metroid franchise and brought us what is today still seen as one of the best fighting games ever, that being Smash Melee. It basically excelled in every major genre of gaming. You had great fighting games, you had great platformers, you had great racing games, you had great life simulation games. So it was good to see that despite its shortcomings and the fact that it was kind of a failure, Nintendo still managed to make this console great for what it was made for. Games. And that's basically how people see the GameCube nowadays. It's a neat little system that sadly didn't make it to the top of its generation, but if you decide to give it a try, you will find yourself in a sea of endless, amazing games that will bring you hours, if not years, of fun. With all of that said, I hope you liked me rambling about this little console, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a nice day.